Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. In a cozy apartment overlooking the skyline, two figures huddled close on a worn leather couch, their laughter echoing off the walls. Remember when we used to play dress-up in your mom's closet? Emma's eyes sparkled with mischief as she nudged her best friend, Michael. How could I forget? Michael chuckled, running a hand through his tousled brown hair. You always made me wear the frilliest dresses. And you loved every second of it, Emma teased, playfully tossing a pillow at him. Michael caught it with ease, a fond smile tugging at his lips. Maybe I did. Their friendship had weathered countless storms over the years, from awkward teenage phases to the tumultuous waters of adulthood. Through it all, they'd remained inseparable, their bond only growing stronger with time. I can't believe you're getting married in a month, Michael mused, his voice tinged with a hint of something unidentifiable. It feels like just yesterday we were making mud pies in your backyard. Emma's expression softened, her hand finding Michael's and giving it a gentle squeeze. I know, it's surreal, but you'll be right there beside me, just like always. Michael's heart skipped a beat at her touch, a familiar warmth spreading through his chest. He'd long since come to terms with his feelings for Emma, burying them deep beneath layers of friendship and camaraderie, but moments like these made it difficult to ignore the persistent ache in his heart. Speaking of which, Emma continued, her eyes lighting up with excitement, I have a huge favor to ask you. Michael raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. Oh? And what might that be? Emma took a deep breath, her grip on Michael's hand tightening. I want you to be my bridesmaid. The world seemed to screech to a halt as Michael processed her words. Your bridesmaid? I know it's unconventional, Emma rushed to explain, but you're my best friend in the whole world. There's no one else I'd rather have by my side on the biggest day of my life. Michael's mind raced, a torrent of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. Part of him wanted to jump at the chance to be there for Emma in such a meaningful way. Another part recoiled at the thought of watching her marry someone else while he stood by in a dress, his own feelings pushed aside. I don't know what to say, he stammered, trying to buy time as he sorted through his jumbled thoughts. Emma's face fell slightly, disappointment creeping into her voice. You don't have to decide right away. I know it's a lot to ask. Michael shook his head, forcing a smile. No, I am honored, really. It's just unexpected. But not entirely out of character for us, right? Emma grinned, some of her earlier enthusiasm returning. Remember all those times we raided my mom's makeup collection? The memory sparked something in Michael, a long-forgotten feeling of contentment and belonging. He recalled the way his heart had soared when Emma had declared him prettier than any real girl after carefully applying a coat of bright red lipstick to his lips. You're right, he said softly, meeting Emma's gaze. It's not out of character at all. Emma's eyes widened with hope. So, is that a yes? Michael took a deep breath, pushing aside his doubts and fears. Yes, I'd be honored to be your bridesmaid. Emma let out a squeal of delight, throwing her arms around Michael's neck. You're the best friend anyone could ask for. As Michael returned to the embrace, he couldn't shake the feeling that this decision would change everything. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity as wedding preparations kicked into high gear. Michael found himself swept up in a flurry of dress fittings, makeup trials, and endless discussions about floral arrangements and seating charts. Standing in front of a full-length mirror in a high-end bridal boutique, Michael studied his reflection with a mix of fascination and trepidation. The pale blue bridesmaid dress hugged his figure in ways he'd never experienced before. You look stunning, the shop assistant gushed, adjusting the hem of the dress. The color really brings out your eyes. Michael blushed, unused to such compliments. Thank you, he murmured, unable to take his eyes off his transformed image. Emma emerged from the changing room, resplendent in her wedding gown. Oh my God, Michael, you look incredible! As Emma fussed over the dress, exclaiming over how perfectly it fit, Michael found himself struggling to breathe. The person staring back at him from the mirror looked so right, so natural, that it was almost painful to acknowledge. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, noticing his distress. "Is the dress too tight?" Michael shook his head, forcing a smile. "No, it's perfect. I'm just overwhelmed, I guess." Emma's expression softened with understanding. "It's a lot, isn't it? But you're handling it like a champ. I knew I could count on you." As they left the boutique, shopping bags in hand, Michael couldn't shake the lingering sense of confusion and longing that had taken root in his chest. That night, alone in his apartment, Michael found himself unable to sleep. His mind raced with thoughts and questions he'd never allowed himself to fully explore before. With trembling hands, he reached for his laptop and began to research. Hours passed as Michael delved into forums, articles, and personal accounts of gender identity and transition. The more he read, the more pieces of his life began to fall into place. The comfort he'd always found in traditionally feminine activities, the disconnect he'd felt with societal expectations of masculinity, the inexplicable sense of rightness he'd experienced in the bridal shop. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through his curtains, Michael sat back, overwhelmed by the weight of his realization. The person he'd been trying to be for so long, the supportive male best friend, the dutiful son, the normal guy, was a carefully constructed facade. Beneath it all lay a truth he could no longer ignore. He was a woman. The days that followed were a blur of conflicting emotions. Michael threw himself into wedding preparations with renewed vigor, using the constant activity as a distraction from the turmoil raging within. But every fitting, every makeup trial, every moment spent in the company of Emma and her other bridesmaids only served to reinforce the growing certainty of his true identity. A week before the wedding, Michael found himself sitting across from Emma in their favorite coffee shop, his hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug of chai latte. The weight of his secret pressed down on him, making it difficult to breathe. He began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something." Emma's brow furrowed with concern. "What is it? You know you can tell me anything." Michael took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about myself and who I am, and I've realized something that I can't ignore anymore." Emma reached across the table, covering Michael's trembling hand with her own. "Whatever it is, I'm here for you." I think I'm transgender," Michael said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "No, I know, I'm a woman." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Michael held his breath, terrified of Emma's reaction. Then, to his surprise, Emma's face broke into a warm smile. "Oh, honey," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I'm so proud of you." Relief washed over Michael in waves, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. You're not mad?" Emma shook her head emphatically. "Of course not. You're my best friend. Nothing could ever change that." As they talked, Michael felt as though a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Emma listened attentively as he shared his journey of self-discovery, offering words of support and asking thoughtful questions. "So," Emma said after a while, a mischievous glint in her eye, "does this mean I need to find a new name for my bridesman?" Michael laughed, wiping away tears. "I guess so. I've been thinking about going by Michelle." "Michelle?" Emma repeated, testing the name. "I love it. It suits you perfectly." As they left the coffee shop, arms linked, Michelle felt a surge of hope for the future. With Emma's unwavering support, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the air filled with excitement and anticipation. In the bridal suite, Michelle stood before the mirror, barely recognizing the person staring back at her. The pale blue bridesmaid dress fit perfectly. Her hair, usually kept short and styled in a masculine cut, had been artfully arranged in soft waves that framed her face. "You look beautiful," Emma said, appearing behind her in the mirror. The bride was radiant in her flowing white gown, her eyes shining with happiness. Michelle felt a lump form in her throat. "So do you, Em. I can't believe this day is finally here." As they shared a tight embrace, Michelle marveled at how differently she felt compared to just a few weeks ago. The pain and confusion that had plagued her for so long had been replaced by a sense of peace and rightness. The ceremony was a blur of emotion and beautiful moments. Michelle stood proudly beside her best friend, her heart full of love and gratitude. As Emma and her new husband shared their first kiss as a married couple, Michelle felt a sense of closure on one chapter of her life and the exciting beginning of another. At the reception, Michelle found herself the center of attention in a way she'd never experienced before. Guests complimented her on her appearance, several commenting on how she seemed to glow with happiness. "You know," one of Emma's aunts said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I always thought you and Emma might end up together, but seeing you like this, I can tell you found yourself. It's wonderful to see." Michelle blushed, touched by the unexpected support. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's been a journey, but I finally feel like I'm living authentically." As the night wore on, Michelle found herself on the dance floor, laughing and twirling with the other bridesmaids. For the first time in her life, she felt truly comfortable in her own skin, free to express herself without fear or hesitation. Emma joined her, grabbing her hands and pulling her into an impromptu waltz. "Having fun?" she asked, grinning widely. "More than I ever thought possible," Michelle replied, her eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. As the music slowed, Emma pulled Michelle into a tight hug. "I'm so glad you're here with me today," she whispered. "Not just as my bridesmaid, but as your true self. You've always been the most important person in my life, and that's never going to change." Michelle hugged her back fiercely, overcome with emotion. "Thank you for loving me, no matter what. Your support means everything to me." As the reception wound down, Michelle found herself standing outside the venue, gazing up at the star-filled sky. The cool night air felt refreshing against her skin, grounding her in the reality of the moment. A familiar voice broke through her reverie. "Mind if I join you?" Michelle turned to see Emma's husband, David, approaching with a gentle smile. "Of course not," she replied, making room for him to stand beside her. They stood in companionable silence for a moment before David spoke. "I wanted to thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "Emma told me about your journey, and I can see how much your friendship means to her. I'm grateful that she has someone like you in her life." Michelle felt a rush of warmth towards this man who had so easily accepted her as part of Emma's life. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me." David nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You know, Emma and I have been talking. We want you to know that you'll always have a place with us. Whatever you need as you continue your transition, support, a safe space, anything, we're here for you." Tears welled up in Michelle's eyes, overwhelmed by the unconditional acceptance she was being offered. "I don't know what to say," she managed. Her voice choked with emotion. David simply pulled her into a warm hug. "You don't have to say anything. You're family." As they made their way back inside to rejoin the dwindling celebration, Michelle felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but she knew she wouldn't have to face them alone. The weeks following the wedding were a whirlwind of change for Michelle. With Emma and David's unwavering support, she began the process of transitioning in earnest. She started hormone therapy, feeling a sense of rightness with each small change in her body. She began growing out her hair, experimenting with different styles and colors until she found one that felt truly her. One sunny afternoon, Michelle stood in front of her bathroom mirror, carefully applying makeup. Her hand trembled slightly as she lined her eyes, still getting used to the delicate movements required. A knock at the door startled her, causing her to smudge the eyeliner. "Come in," she called, quickly grabbing a tissue to fix her mistake. Emma's face appeared in the doorway, a wide smile lighting up her features. "Hey you, how's it going?" Michelle turned to face her friend, gesturing ruefully at her reflection. "Still getting the hang of this whole makeup thing. I don't know how you make it look so effortless." Emma laughed, stepping into the bathroom and picking up the eyeliner. "Here, let me help. It just takes practice. You'll get there." As Emma gently corrected the smudged line, Michelle felt a rush of gratitude for her friend's patience and support. "Thanks, Em, for everything." Emma met her gaze in the mirror, her expression softening. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just happy to see you becoming who you were always meant to be." Once the makeup was fixed to both their satisfaction, they moved to the living room. Settling onto the couch with mugs of tea, Michelle tucked her legs underneath her, smoothing out the fabric of the floral sundress she'd chosen for the day. "So," Emma began, a hint of excitement in her voice, "I have some news!" Michelle raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh? Do tell." Emma took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling. "David and I are pregnant." For a moment, Michelle felt as though the wind had been knocked out of her. A complex mix of emotions washed over her. Joy for her friend, a twinge of sadness for the life she'd once imagined for herself, and a fierce protectiveness for the family that had embraced her so completely. "Oh my God, Em!" she exclaimed, pulling her friend into a tight hug. "That's amazing! Congratulations!" As they pulled apart, both wiping away happy tears, Emma grabbed Michelle's hands. "There's more," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We want you to be the baby's godmother." Michelle felt her heart swell with love and gratitude. "Are you sure? I mean, I'd be honored, but nothing," Emma interrupted firmly. "You're my best friend, my sister in every way that matters. There's no one else we'd rather have as our child's godmother." Overcome with emotion, Michelle could only nod, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Emma pulled her into another hug, and they sat like that for a long while, reveling in the joy of the moment and the strength of their bond. As the months passed, Michelle continued to grow more comfortable in her identity. She legally changed her name and gender marker, a process that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. With each step, she felt more like herself, more at home in her own skin. Emma's pregnancy progressed, and Michelle found herself fully embracing her role as the doting godmother-to-be. She attended doctor's appointments, helped organize the baby shower, and spent countless hours discussing names and nursery designs with the expectant parents. One evening, as they sat in Emma and David's newly decorated nursery, Michelle found herself lost in thought. Emma, noticing her friend's distraction, placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked softly. Michelle blinked, coming back to the present. "Sorry, I was just, reflecting, I guess, on how much has changed, how far we've come." Emma nodded, understanding in her eyes. "It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?" "That's an understatement," Michelle chuckled, running her hand over the soft fabric of the rocking chair she was sitting in. "If you had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here as myself, about to become a godmother, I never would have believed it." Emma's expression turned serious. "Do you ever regret it? Coming out? Transitioning?" Michelle shook her head emphatically. "Never. It hasn't always been easy, but I've never felt more alive, more myself. I sometimes wonder what my life would have been like if I'd figured it out sooner." "Hey," Emma said gently, taking Michelle's hand. "You can't change the past. What matters is that you're here now, living your truth. And we're all so proud of you for that." Michelle squeezed her friend's hand, feeling a rush of love and gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know where I'd be without you and David." As if summoned by the mention of his name, David appeared in the doorway, a tray of snacks in his hands. "I thought you ladies might be hungry," he said with a smile, setting the tray down on a nearby table. Michelle watched as Emma's face lit up at the sight of her husband, the love between them palpable. For a moment, she felt a pang of longing for that kind of connection. But as David handed her a plate, his eyes warm with genuine affection, she realized that she was already part of something beautiful and rare, a chosen family built on unconditional love and acceptance. The day Emma went into labor was a blur of excitement and nervous energy. Michelle paced the hospital waiting room, alternating between quiet anxiety and bursts of conversation with David's parents, who had flown in for the birth. After what felt like an eternity, David emerged from the delivery room, his face glowing with joy. "It's a girl," he announced, his voice cracking with emotion. A cheer went up from the assembled family and friends. Michelle felt tears of happiness spring to her eyes as she hugged David tightly. "Congratulations, Dad," she whispered, her heart full of love for this little family. When she was finally allowed to enter the room, Michelle's breath caught in her throat at the sight of Emma cradling the tiny bundle in her arms. Emma looked up, her face radiant despite her exhaustion. "Come meet your goddaughter," she said softly, gesturing for Michelle to come closer. With trembling hands, Michelle accepted the newborn, marveling at how light and fragile she felt. As she gazed down at the baby's tiny features, a fierce wave of protectiveness washed over her. "She's perfect," Michelle murmured, gently stroking the baby's cheek. "What's her name?" Emma and David exchanged a look, smiling. "We decided to name her Michaela," David said. "After her godmother." Michelle's head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise and emotion. "Really? You named her after me?" Emma reached out, taking Michelle's free hand. "Of course we did. You've been such an important part of our lives, of this journey. We want our daughter to grow up knowing the strength, courage, and love that you embody." Unable to speak past the lump in her throat, Michelle could only nod, tears streaming down her face as she held little Michaela close. As the days turned into weeks and months, Michelle threw herself into her role as godmother with enthusiasm and dedication. She babysat, changed diapers, and sang lullabies with a joy she'd never known before. One afternoon, as she sat in the rocking chair, Michaela sleeping peacefully in her arms, Michelle found herself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. From the confused and conflicted person she'd been just over a year ago to the confident and happy woman she was now, every step had led her here. Emma entered the nursery quietly, smiling at the sight of her best friend and daughter. "You're a natural," she whispered, careful not to wake the baby. Michelle looked up, returning the smile. "She makes it easy. She's such a good baby." As Emma perched on the arm of the rocking chair, Michelle felt a surge of gratitude for the unwavering support and love that had carried her through her transition. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think that being your bridesmaid was the hardest thing I'd ever do, but now I realize it was the best thing that could have happened to me." Emma wrapped an arm around Michelle's shoulders, pulling her close. "I'm so glad you found yourself, Michelle. And I'm even more glad that you're here, part of our family." As they sat there, the three of them together, Michelle felt a profound sense of peace and belonging. She had found her true self, and in doing so, had discovered a depth of love and acceptance she'd never thought possible. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.